I might have taken vows, I might be doing sadhana for so many years, but I'm still not exactly a completely surrendered soul. So we are in a dangerous position, because if we are to leave our body in such a state of consciousness, it's most likely we're going to be taking birth again. Of course, Krishna promises that we won't take birth in a lower species or something. We will certainly take birth in the association of devotees and the family of devotees, etc. But because it's Kali Yuga, one can never take the chance. Because even you could be born into a very nice family of devotees. The material nature is so strong that despite all, having good birth, good family, etc., there's always a chance of falling away from the path. So then the question was raised that, well, how can we facilitate the process going more quickly? How can we progress nicely through the stages of the maturation of bhakti, so that we don't just become complacent and comfortable where we are and fail to move forward before death comes? So a couple weeks ago, we observed Krishna Janmashtami. And there's a very nice lesson. There's many nice lessons, but one of the nice lessons that we learn from the Leela of Krishna's Janma is that Krishna only appears as he is in full, where there is Ananya Bhakti. So this is illustrated as follows, that Lord Brahma, he has many sons. So one of Lord Brahma's sons was born from the mind of Lord Brahma, and his name is Marichi. So Marichi represents the mind. Marichi himself had 6 sons, and these are products of the mind. And these 6 sons, the acharyas have described, represent the 6 enemies of material association, namely kama, lust, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, moha, illusion, madha, madness, and matsarya, envy. So the 6 sons of Marichi, one day they saw their grandfather, Brahma, and they thought they perceived that he performed an act of impropriety. So they laughed at him. Now, it is very rude to laugh at your grandfather. It's not proper etiquette. So when they laughed at their grandfather, Brahma, they were cursed. And he said, you are being cursed that you take birth in the family of demons. So those 6 sons of Marichi, they had to take birth again. This time, they took birth in the family of a very big demon named Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu had several sons. One of them is Kalanemi. So they took birth as 6 sons of Kalanemi. While they were living that life as the sons of Kalanemi, they wanted to become practically immortal. They wanted to be able to, because the demigods and the demons were involved in these big wars all the time. So they wanted the benediction of being indefeatable in battle, practically immortal. So they decided to worship Lord Brahma. When their grandfather, Hiranyakashipu, learned that these 6 boys were worshiping Lord Brahma for the sake of getting this benediction of being, indefeatable in battle, he became very angry because, as you probably know, Hiranyakashipu thought he was like the king of the universe, right? Nobody above him. So he became very angry. How dare you go to Lord Brahma and worship him? I'm the worshipable object. If you want anything, you worship me. He said, now I'm going to curse you. You're getting cursed all the time. He says, now I curse you that in your next life, your own father will kill you. So, in the next lifetime, Kalanemi took birth as Kamsa. These 6 boys, who were originally the sons of Marichi, Kamakrodalova, Moha, Mata, and Matsarya, they took birth one by one, year after year, as the first 6 sons of Devaki. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the great acharyas in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, has explained that Devaki, her womb represents bhakti. Krishna is Krishna. These 6 boys that were killed one after another, the first 6 sons of Devaki, represent the 6 enemies of material association, beginning with Kama. And he points out that the lesson being illustrated here is that Krishna, he doesn't appear where bhakti is unless and until that bhakti is completely pure. That all vestiges and remnants of these enemies of material association, beginning with Kama, that they must be completely annihilated, purified from the heart, before Krishna himself personally reveals himself in the womb of bhakti. So how, in other words, we have to do the work that's necessary to purge those enemies of material association from the heart, to come to that platform of asakti, where the mind is just completely fixed on Krishna, and then Baba, and then Prema, and Krishna appears in the heart. So how are these, 6 enemies of material association going to be purified from the heart? So, although Krishna may not be presently appearing in our heart, in person, having face-to-face type of revelation to us, he has appeared in the form of the holy name. He does appear where the holy name is actually chanted properly. Properly means without offense, with real feeling. So, the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explained that when Devaki had her first 6 sons, she was very, very afraid of Kamsa, because Kamsa, she knew, wanted to kill her children. So every time a pregnancy came, she became totally fearful of her brother Kamsa. So that, and so Vishwanath explains that Kamsa represents fear of material existence. So this fear of material existence then actually ends up killing, if you will, the enemies of material association. If you fear, that there's fire in the kitchen, you don't enter the kitchen. If you fear that there's some poison in the food, you don't eat the food, right? So if one actually fears material association, material, life, one will, won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, as they say. One will be very cautious. So Srila Prabhupada often said that he was speaking to his young disciples. And he said, the problem with you boys and girls is that you are not afraid enough of Maya. And therefore you flirt with her. He said, you are not enough afraid of Maya. Now what happens when somebody's really scared? Like let's say a very small child, like big lightning bolt comes, really loud thunder. You probably had this experience, right? In the middle of the night. So what does the child do when he or she is really scared? Yeah, they cry for the mother, Mommy. So our fear of material existence doesn't mean that we walk around like paranoid and, we put a bunch of locks on our doors so nobody comes in, or, fear of material existence means I fear taking birth again. I fear that these 6 enemies of material association will prevent me from having pure bhakti. So that fear of material existence is actually meant, it's a healthy thing, it's actually meant to assist us in crying out to Krishna. Like the child cries for the mother when the child's very scared. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what does he say about material energy? Yes, that's 7:14. Daiviyesha gunamahi mama maya dharatyaya mamevaye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. This material nature, don't flirt with it. Don't play with it. Don't be comfortable with it. Because this material nature is like a fortress, like a prison house. You're stuck in it, and you can't get out. It doesn't matter if you're like a real good escape artist or whatever, you can't get out of this jail. It is extremely difficult to overcome material nature, but if you take shelter of me, that's all you have to do. You take shelter of me, very easily you can cross beyond this material nature. So what does it mean to take shelter of Krishna? It means to call on him. So we're all chanting. Every day we're chanting japa. Some of us are chanting 16 rounds a day for so many years. But are we really calling out to Krishna? We can chant for 700 lifetimes, the way we're currently chanting. But are we actually calling out to Krishna? I heard Sadhuputa Prabhu give a lecture. He explained that there's this type of epilepsy where the person will have, they're walking around, they're just like a normal, everything's okay. Then they'll have an epileptic episode, and they can still continue to do things like walk down the street, stop at the red light, wait for traffic, cross the street, turn at the turn and maneuver their way home. They can do all these like seemingly like mechanical type things. But if you were to approach them and tap them on the shoulder and try to have a conversation with them, they can't have a coherent conversation with you. So he said there's a certain type of epilepsy that when that episode happens, it's like the consciousness recedes somewhere, and the regular activities like walking home from work, catching the proper bus, paying the proper amount to get on the bus, all these things, they do it like an automaton. And to the vision of everybody else, they're just functioning normal. But if you try to sit down and have a conscious, conversation with them, it's like they're not there. So he was making the point, and everybody chuckled when he said it, but it's actually very serious. He was making the point that we are also very much, many times, we're like automatons when we chant our japa. All the syllables are coming, and the beads are moving. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare. But the mind is way over there. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're actually talking to Krishna. You must have had this experience, I know I've had this experience, where you're talking to somebody, like face to face, like 2 feet away, you're talking to somebody, and it becomes obvious to you after a minute or so that the person's mind is way over somewhere else. They're not even paying attention. It's really easy to do on the phone, right? Because the person can't see you unless you're on like Skype or something, But you're talking on the phone, and you're having this whole long conversation, and the other person's got the phone down on speakerphone, and they're doing something else over here, and they're not even paying attention. So it's like that when we're chanting japa. We can become automatons because we've chanted so much. It's just like, second nature. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram. Move the beads, everything. But we're not there. We're not calling out to Krishna. So, Prabhupada often said that we should actually be chanting in the mood of a child crying for their mother. One time, devotees did a they had a radio program where every week they would go on the radio and do a little radio drama. So they'd pick stories from the Krishna book and do an oral little radio drama. So one week they were doing the Krishna Leela of Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kaliya serpent. And Krishna gets all enveloped in the hoods of Kaliya, and Mother Yashoda and the other Vrajavasis, they're on the shore, and they're seeing Krishna all enveloped in the hoods of Kaliya, and they get all alarmed, right? And they call out for Krishna, and Mother Yashoda's panicking like anything. So later they played the audio recording for Srila Prabhupada. So the recording's going, and it gets to the point where Kaliya's, looking like he's about to kill Krishna. He's got him all squeezing him in his coils and everything. And Mother Yashoda is on the shore of the lake. So Mother Yashoda says, "Krishna! Krishna!" And Prabhupada said, he told them to stop the tape. He said, "Who was that was playing the role of Mother Yashoda?" And the devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, that was Sumati Devi Dasi." He said, "You please instruct her that she should chant her japa every day just like that." Now, he didn't mean that we have to scream. But he was illustrating the point. When does Krishna come? Let's get just down here to real life here. When does the mother come? Mother's in the kitchen cooking, and the child's in the next room playing. So maybe the child, says, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," and the mother's just saying, "I'm busy, be quiet, go talk to your brother, I'm busy." But if the child really is in need, and the child is like, "Oh, okay," so they stop bothering her, But if the child is actually in need of the mother, something horrible happened, like they fell off the bed and broke their leg, whatever, they're really actually in urgent need of the mother, then they're gonna scream for the mother, "Mommy!" And when she hears that, it's the same, "Mommy, Mommy," it's the same everything, but the tone of the voice, etc., conveys the message. Mother does not need an explanation that what's going on. Or she's not going to say, "Don't bother me, I'm busy cooking." When the mother hears that blood-curdling call from the child, she doesn't even think about what she's doing. She flies over to the next room and attends to the child. So similarly, Krishna is the original person. Why do we behave like that? Because he behaves like that. So Krishna comes when that calling for him is so sincere. Progress in devotional service does not happen for automatons. Automatons will stay where they are. They will not progress in Krishna consciousness. So, we have to be honest. And actually, when we chant japa, for example, we should really be critiquing our japa. No one else is going to do it for us, probably. And our sincerity in calling for Krishna is not just during the minutes and hours that we're chanting japa. It's actually a 24/7 thing, no matter what our activities are. While we're at work, while we're at school, while we're at home. The heart should always be calling for Krishna, taking shelter of Krishna. If we're not taking shelter of Krishna, that means we are taking shelter of material energy. There's only two things. There's light and there's darkness. So if you turn off the light, then it must be dark. We can't have some third position. So we can actually take some inventory about, are we taking shelter of Krishna? Did I chant this morning when I chanted my japa? Was it a calling out? Did Krishna come when I call? Did I call for him properly, and did he actually appear in my life, or was it just automatic, like push the play button? So how do we analyze whether we're actually chanting properly? Well, according to Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction, there are like little barometers and thermometers that we can use to test our advancement in bhakti to see, are we making any progress? So he says that there are 6 things which cause bhakti to not go forward. In fact, not only does it cause bhakti not to go forward, but they also cause bhakti to go backwards. We can go backwards in our devotional, realizations, etc. He says, if we're performing these 6 things, we will not go forward in bhakti. See, everything requires we do our part, Krishna does his. When Arjuna was going to battle, Krishna very, frankly told Arjuna that actually you're not the doer. You're not capable of doing anything. I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is in charge of the material energy, I am killing all the soldiers on the battlefield. You can only be an instrument. He did not tell Arjuna, because I'm the doer and you're not the doer, therefore you should just sit down and take a nap in the back seat and I'll fight the war for you. No. He said, get up, give up your lethargy, and fight. Give it your all, he said. Give it your all. Dedicate your senses, your mind, your intelligence, your abilities. Give it your all. And when I see that you've really, 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 really done your best to the best of your ability, I will take care of all the rest. I will guarantee that you win the war. So similarly, Rupa Goswami is pointing out that although Krishna in our heart is purifying our heart, still he wants to see that we do our share of the contract. So he says there are 6 things that we have to make a very conscious effort. It might not be easy, but we have to make a very conscious effort to decrease these 6 activities in our life, because Krishna will not appear, Krishna will not be pleased, Krishna will not be present in a heart that's contaminated with these 6 things. So I'm sure you've all heard them, but it always is good to go over them. We have to remind ourselves over and over again. So the first one is atyahara. Atyahara means overeating or over-collecting. And this is fueled by lust. That's what lust means, just like over-desiring something. And we know lust is one of the gates that leads to hell, lust, anger, and greed, right? And the next is prayasha. Over-endeavoring for mundane achievements or position or what have you. Now we might say, well, I don't over-endeavor, I just do my job. Okay, but over-endeavor, how do we know if we're over-endeavoring? We know we're over-endeavoring when that effort causes me to not have proper time, energy, etc. for our spiritual life. I mean, it's like a little too consuming, or if it's just not necessary. We're not satisfied with the basic necessities of life. So this prayasha is very, very dangerous. And that's powered by, it's fueled by lust, and it breeds anger because I want that position. I want that pay raise. I want that thing, or I want that person, or whatever it is. And if we don't get it, we get angry. And usually when we really, really want something like that, what do we have to do? We have to compete with others for it. I want to be promoted to be the manager of the department. Well, how many managers of the department are there? 1. And there's 20 people in the office. So now we have to compete with each other. So it breeds anger, actually.
Fuel envy also.
Yeah, so and envy. Because if that person gets it and I don't, why did they get it? Etc. So you can see. It's very, very difficult. It's very dangerous to desire in this world position, distinction, profit, name and fame, like that. Very dangerous. And then the third one, prajalpa, means idle talk, talking about things like we were reading in the purport, right? In the 5th canto there. Devotees don't have time to do all this talk on sociology and politics and what have you. And prajalpa usually means gossip. And gossip is definitely fueled by envy. That's like basically what gossip is. If we're not using the tongue to glorify Krishna, then we'll be using the tongue to unglorify somebody else. So, incorrect use of the tongue. Then niyamagraha. Niyamagraha means either we just think, oh, I don't need to follow the rules and regulations, because I'm chanting Hare Krishna, so I'm above the rules and regulations. So we abandon the rules and regulations when we shouldn't. Or we follow the rules and regulations, but we do it like an automaton, just to fulfill the requirement, but not really with our heart into it to make advancement. And then janasanga, association with worldly-minded people. So the association with worldly-minded people is dangerous because their desires become our desires. Because that's all they're talking about is their desires, you know. I want this and I want that, and I'm going to get this and I'm going to get that. Guess what I did this weekend, and guess what I'm going to do next weekend. Their desires become our desires. Their qualities wear off. Their lack of determination for spiritual life wears off on us. It wears us down. Very, very dangerous. Then lolium, material greed. We're not satisfied with what we have, so we have to get more. And again, the whole competition thing. So those 6 activities, Rupa Goswami says, we should be able to look at our heart every day and see how are we doing in these 6 activities? Am I still like totally immersed in these 6 activities? And that's an indication of whether my chanting is purifying my heart, or am I just like not purifying my heart properly. Then he says there's 6 things that we must add to our life, we must have in our life, so that bhakti goes forward nicely. And the first one is utsahat, or enthusiasm. So enthusiasm basically means giving it all your energy, not holding back. Like Arjuna, right? He had to give it his all. He invested all his energy. Prabhupada said, enthusiasm means endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness. Endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness. So then the second quality is nischayat, or confidence. One should be completely confident that this is the right thing to do, I should do my sadhana, etc. One shouldn't be discouraged that, oh, it works for other people, but it won't work for me. One should be confident that Krishna is going to reciprocate. The process works, it's a science. So if it's not working, that means we're doing something wrong. Not that we throw it away and say, oh, it doesn't work. No, I just did something wrong. How many people here have ever tried to bake something in the kitchen, like a cake or a pie or cookies? Yeah. And it didn't come out the way the recipe said it should. Or you try to make chapatis and they come out like crackers. Nobody wants to eat them, so you gotta like feed them to squirrels, and they won't even eat them. You know, it's like we all have that experience. So what do we say? What do we say? Oh, the recipe's wrong. You know, she taught me incorrectly. She skipped a step. She showed me how to make chapatis, but she must have skipped a step because she didn't want my chapatis to come out proper. Yeah, we blame it on the process. No, the problem is right here. I didn't do it properly. You know, I missed something. I cooked it too long. Whatever. So practice, 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 practice. So like that, Nishchaya means confidence. The process works. I'm just not doing it correctly. So let me learn how to do it correctly. Then Daryat means patience. We can't expect, I've been chanting for 3 months and I'm still, a victim of the modes of material nature. Patience means let Krishna do it on his time, not on my time. I can't demand from Krishna, show yourself right now. Why am I not free from all doubts right now? No, he'll reciprocate on his own time. So if we see the light at the end of the tunnel, we have to just keep moving forward and not give up before we get there. And then tat karma pravartanat means to engage in devotional service according to the rules and regulations, not to concoct our own way how to perform devotional service. So the processes of Shravanam, Kirtanam, etc. have their prescriptions, who you should hear from, how you should hear. We should hear from a pure devotee who has realizations. We should hear with rapt attention, with service attitude, like that. So many rules are there. And then Sangha Tyaga means abandoning mundane association. Now, that doesn't mean when you go to work, you have to put a big black, steel case around you so you don't talk to anybody or see anybody and nobody talks to you. But giving up mundane association means that's not where I find my heart-to-heart satisfaction. I'm not like revealing my heart to such people or listening to their heart, unless of course you're preaching to them and you have to do that to help them or something. So, Sangha Tyaga, we don't take the association of worldly-minded people. And then lastly, Satovrite, following the acharyas. So our acharyas, they didn't waste a minute of time. They didn't waste a minute of time. And usually the question is, how do we balance our material and spiritual life, right? Don't you always have that question? What's the right way to, I do have a material life, but I have my spiritual life, so how do I balance it? Well, the question is wrong. You can't get an answer to that question because your question is wrong. What's wrong with the question? How do I balance material and spiritual life? Can anybody say?
There should be no material life.
Well, yes, someday we will have no material life. But for those of us who have a material life, it's unavoidable. Even Krishna says to Arjuna, chapter 3, text 8, that one cannot even maintain their existence without work in this world. So we do have a material life. But what's wrong with the question, how do I balance material and spiritual life?
Not working for ourselves. With the selfish motive, we should not work.
Well, that's true, we shouldn't be selfish. The problem with this question is, we don't balance material and spiritual life. We don't put material life on this, what's it called, this platform here, and spiritual life on this platform here, and okay, now they're even, or this spiritual's a little higher, lower. We don't balance material and spiritual life. Rather, what devotees do is they put Krishna in the center of their material life. There's a difference. Look at the picture. The first picture is like this. I'm trying to balance, walking on a tightrope, right? You're like, whoa, I gotta balance this side and, not to fall off, balance it. But the other picture is putting Krishna in the center. When Krishna's in the center, then all the concentric circles in our life, whether it be our job, our school, our family, our health, our property, our relationship, whatever, like concentric circles around Krishna. And if Krishna's in the center, then it no longer has to materially pull us down. It's not like a competition between the two, which one's higher, which one's lower. It's the art of putting Krishna in the center of our life. So this Sato Vrite, that's exactly what our acharyas did. They always put Krishna in the center of their life. Which means, like he was mentioning, our material life is just a support for our spiritual life, because we have to maintain our bodies while we're here, right? How well are you going to chant when you're like so sickly you can't even pick up your beads or whatever? So our material life, if it's centered on Krishna, it's not an impediment to our making advancement. So that we have to follow in the footsteps of the acharyas, how they did that. And it starts with our chanting. If our chanting is not really calling out to Krishna, then Krishna's, if we're not, and therefore we're not taking shelter of Krishna, because we're not calling on him properly, then Krishna is not going to reciprocate by pulling the effects of material nature away from us. When we surrender to him, the material energy will recede. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, taking the role of a ordinary sadhaka in his Shikshashtakam prayers, he lamented in the second prayer. He ends by saying, Durdaivam idrisam mahajani nanuraga. He said, oh Krishna, even though he prayed that, oh Krishna, your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings. You've made yourself easily available in the form of your holy name. He said, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for the proper chanting of the holy name. So he cried. He didn't just say, oh, I'm unfortunate. That's not what he did. He cried tears of unhappiness, hot tears, that I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction to really calling out for you when I chant Hare Krishna. In another verse, a few verses later, when he's speaking in the mood of a devotee who's actually on the level of asakti, in that verse, he prays that Nayanam Galadashudalaya, Vadanam Gadvadayudaya Gira, Pulakir Nishchitam Bhaktivada, Tavanama Grahani Vivishiti, that when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy names? So we all want to have those kinds of tears. We all aspire to have those tears falling from our eyes constantly like torrents of rain when we chant the holy name of Krishna. But we will never have those tears coming from our eyes. Never. Unless and until we first have these other tears falling from our eyes. And what are those tears? Durdaivam idrisamahajani nanuraga. That honest, sincere admission that I try and I try and I try to chant, but I have no taste, no attraction for the holy name. I am so unfortunate. So what do we do if we're lacking fortune? What do you do about this lack of fortune?
It's not our hand. It's not in our hand.
It's not in our hands, very good. We have to realize it's not in our hands to get, fortune. We can't make it, right? So what do? Beg for it. And you've seen people on the streets begging for money because they're in desperate need of money. But pride prevents us from begging. I might be without money and I haven't eaten in a couple of days, but I'm not going to go out on the street and beg. That's below me. But when I'm really desperate, like, man, oh man, I can't feed my own children, then forget the pride. I'm going to be out there begging for donations, right? For charity. So a devotee has to come to that platform where I realize it's totally out of my hands. There's nothing I can do to make the attraction for chanting just happen. I have to let go of my pride, put down that false ego, and beg with tears in my eyes, coming out of my eyes, for that fortune. Dordaivam idrisa mahajani nanuraga. Please give it to me. So where do we get it? So we were just hearing, 5th canto, Bhagavatam, that where do we get that fortune that we desperately need? It only comes from serving the pure devotees. So there's this verse in Bhagavatam, that's 1:2:16. This is a very, very, everybody should memorize this verse. This is perhaps, well, it's hard to say it's the most important verse because there's so many, but it's definitely one of the top 10 and most important verse. Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 16. Shushusho Sharadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syanmahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. What this verse is saying is that by rendering service unto those great souls who are completely free of all vice, that great service is performed. And by such service, one gains affinity for the message of Godhead, which means one also gains affinity for the chanting of the message of Godhead, hearing and repeating the message and the holy name. So what does that mean? By service of those great souls who are completely free of all vice. It means those people who are completely free from those 6 enemies of material association. Because if we're free from kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, and matsarya, that means we're free from all the bad activities, bad habits, bad qualities. Because everything comes from those 6 enemies, right? All the cheating, all the competition, all the hatred, exploitation, that all stems from kama, krodha, etc. So by serving those devotees who are completely free from all these vices, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for the message of Godhead. Why? Because the next verse says, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantastohi Vajrani Vidinoti Saritsatam. That when Krishna sees, oh, you have served my wonderful, great devotee who is free from all vice. Wow, I am so pleased. And basically you serve them by hearing. You serve them in many ways, but the best way to serve such a pure devotee is to hear from them. So when Krishna sees, wow, Krishna in your heart sees, wow, Shrikar just served a pure devotee that's free from all the vices, then what does Paramatma do? He pulls out the scrub brush and he he just like annihilates the anartas in the heart. Because it's out of our hands. We can't do that work, only he can. And when he cleanses the heart of the gross mass of anartas, then nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhagavati naishtiki. Naishtiki means nishta. When the major glob of anartas is removed from the heart, then one comes to the level of nishta in their bhakti. Bhakti is established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. It becomes steady. And then one progresses. Then the effects of the lower modes of nature are diminished. Evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. One becomes completely free from material association. Mukta sangasya jayate. Mukta, liberation, sangasya, from the association of jayate, comes about or is born from. So when Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, the realization of Bhagavan starts manifesting in the heart, then one actually becomes completely free of material association. So this is the answer then to how do we make progress as rapidly as possible so that we can get on that level of asakti, be purely situated on the platform of ananya bhakti, and when we leave this body, it's only forward, no mundane birth like this. The catalyst is always serving those devotees who are completely free of all vice. Just like if you have done a chemistry experiment in the laboratory, you put all the reagents in the flask, you put the right temperature, heating up the solution, you put all the apparatus together properly, and you let it stir for the right amount of hours, and you come back the next day, and what do you see? Nothing happened.
Reaction.
What happened? The reaction didn't go forward. And I'll let it stir for another 24 hours. And you come back, nothing is happening. So what's wrong? You didn't add the catalyst, a teeny tiny bit of catalyst. You put in the flask, then it goes from, step 1 to step 2, and then step 2 to step 3, and the whole progression happens until, boom, finally at the end you've got your final product. So we are like that. We're doing the whole, devotional service experiment, but we don't perceive